Okay, it's a day after we did our brew, and we're looking at the pail. We'll pan up right here, and you can see now that airlock is bubbling away, which is exactly what we want. That means that the yeast is converting that alcohol and producing some CO2, and so this little airlock releases that CO2, so everything stays nice and the beer is working. So this will be probably going on for at least another week, and then we'll move on to transferring it to the carboy for the secondary fermentation. Okay, it's been 2 weeks since we did our primary brew and fermentation, and the little airlock has stopped bubbling. Probably stopped about a week or so ago, but I didn't have a chance to get to it until today. And that's really fine, because when you've got the beer like this, there is a layer of CO2 that kind of helps protect it a bit. So this is still sealed tight, so everything should still be fine. What we're going to do now is we're going to transfer the beer from the primary fermenter, now that it's been completed, and we're going to transfer it over to the carboy. 5-gallon carboy. We're going to let it sit there for at least another week or so. Let all the beer, the particles and everything that's in there settle down, and it's just, you're going to see it'll really help make the beer get really nice and clear looking, and give us that final good appearance, as well as help with the way the beer tastes. So I've already sanitized the carboy, and we got some other pieces here. We got a different kind of airlock, kind of an S-style airlock, and this little sucker here is going to go into the neck of the carboy, where we can seal it up again and let it sit for, like I said, another week or so, just to get it ready to go for the bottling. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the lid of the primary fermenter and just get this off of here. I'm going to probably hang on to that airlock. Just we may end up using that on the carboy. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so there's our beer. I'm going to take our siphon now, which has been sanitized. Everything in here has been sanitized. Don't want to mess with that now that we've got a nice batch of beer ready to go. So we've got our siphon here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the tube in to the carboy and let it sit in there. Alright, let that all the way down in there. And then I'm just going to stick the siphon into the primary beer fermenter, and I'm just going to give it a few pumps, and you'll see our siphon gets going, and now the beer gets transferring. The good part about doing this with the siphon, you minimize the amount of contact you have with the beer. Now that the beer is, actually is beer, you don't want to have anything that's unsanitized come into contact with it, which is why I've sanitized the siphon and also the carboy and everything else that's going to touch it. Here's an overhead shot of the siphoning and process. You can see the ring where we have the remnants of the hops and some other parts of the beer that kind of settled during fermentation. We're getting close to the end here. Being transferred. Here's the carboy. You can see now it's getting pretty full. A little bit more and we'll be done. And we are done. 5 gallons of beer transferred to the carboy. I put the stopper in, and I ended up using the airlock from the primary. It just had a more snug fit onto the little entrance to the stopper, so just wanted to keep it airtight as possible. I still have the little airlock like you saw earlier, but it's not going to really bubble a whole lot because the primary fermentation is done. And you can look inside, speaking of primary, the remnants of it. We got the yeast that mostly settled to the bottom down there. And so we're going to just wash this baby out, get it ready for the next time we brew a batch. I didn't mention this earlier, but really the secondary, what we're doing right here, is not really necessary. It is helpful if you want the beer to really get a nice clear look and let a lot of that
stuff settle to the bottom, but you don't have to do this part. I have gone straight from the primary fermenter into bottling or kegging, but this way you get nice, real nice appearance on the beer, and I think it kind of helps mellow the flavor out a little. So it's worth the extra step if you can afford the time. So we'll keep it in this guy for about another week or so, and then we'll move on to the bottling process.
Okay, carboy secondary fermentation has finished. As you can see, we're going to go down to the bottom here, and there's a lot of sediment. You can kind of see that right there. That's all the yeast and hops and other stuff in the beer that just settled down, which is good. It means the beer will be that much more clearer and ready to go. So we're going to be finishing up sanitizing. I've been sanitizing for a while before I started this video, getting the bottles ready, getting the pail ready for the beer. So we'll take a look at that right now.
Over here we got the ale pail with the little spigot on the side right there. So that's going to be used for our bottling. Right now I am sanitizing. I'm even sanitizing a glove here in case I have to reach in, make an adjustment. I did notice a little bit of a slow leak, so I'll probably be tweaking that before we get started. I got the siphon in here too, running the sanitizer through the siphon. We used that in the last phase when we were transferring to the carboy. We're going to use it again, transferring the beer into this ale pail, which we can then pour into the bottles. Here's just some of the bottles. We're going to be using a lot. 5-gallon batch is roughly 2 cases of beer, so around 48 12-ounce bottles. Now I'm going to be using some 2-liter bottles like these guys, so we're not going to have to bottle exactly 48 bottles, so it's going to be a little bit less, but we'll show you that when we get to that part of the process.
And here's 2 other ingredients we're going to need for the carbonation. We got over here on the right, we have 5 ounces of regular white table sugar. And over here on the left, we have 2 cups of water. We're going to mix these together in a pot, bring that to a boil for 5 minutes, and then we're going to mix that in with the beer using the siphon to transfer from the carboy into the ale pail for bottling. Okay, we're about 40 seconds away from the boil being done. Boil just the water and sugar for priming the beer for carbonation. So when that's done, I'm going to just pour that into the bucket right here. You can see a little bit at the bottom of your screen. I'm going to transfer with the siphon from the carboy right into there. So we'll get going. I got about 20 seconds. Got everything prepared. We're also going to, at some point, take another measurement for the hydrometer. If you remember when I was doing the initial boil, I took the starting gravity. We're going to take the finishing gravity. So here comes our timer. Let me turn that off. Okay. Boil's complete. This is the definitely easier part of the process as far as the initial boil is compared. There's a lot less checking and monitoring. You don't have to worry about the temperature on this one. There's my glasses fogging up. Okay, so we got the beer in there. So I'm going to remove the little stopper from the carboy. Set that guy down. We don't need that anymore. So now I'm going to take one end of the one end of the siphon, stick it in there, and we're going to drape our little hose in. So we got the sugar and water solution boiled up in the bottom of the pail. So I'm now going to transfer the beer in. And what this is going to do is this is going to blend with the sugar mixture. And so by the time we get to bottle it, we're going to have all that extra sugar in there. And what's going to happen is the residual yeast that is still in this beer right now is going to catch that sugar, going to start
it's basically going to start another fermentation, a small one. But unlike before where we had the little airlock releasing the CO2, it'll be capped up or screwed up tight in a bottle. So it's going to create that pressure and give us that nice carbonation whenever we pour the beer. So this is going to take a few more minutes. So we'll jump ahead to when it's time to actually do the bottling. Okay, the boil's done. The beer has been transferred with the sugar. It's all in here now, ready to be poured out into the bottles. So we'll get started. I'm going to do several of these and then we'll just skip ahead to the finish. Because once you see a few, it's pretty much all the same. So, alright, so I'm going to start with the 2-liter bottles. And real simple, just spigot just turns to the left to open. And here comes our beer. Nice, rich caramel, dark caramel complexion. I'm going to fill these bottles, give a little head space, from the top, probably around there for the, maybe about 2 inches for the 2 liters and maybe 1.5 inches for the 12 ounces. Just want a little room for the beer because remember we're going to have another bit of fermentation going on. We're going to have that carbon dioxide building up, so you want to give it a little space. We got a good pour going on this one. Once these are all bottled, I'm going to keep them probably a minimum of 2 weeks before I even try tasting them, because you want to give that yeast enough time to ferment. I'm going to slow down the pour here, get it toward the top, and do a little, there you go. And of course those bubbles will just settle. That's just from the pouring. We're okay with that. All right. That's good enough. Okay, so let's cap this guy. All right, squeeze it on, cap it on tight. Good old Coke Zero, ready to go. All right. So we'll do some more like that. Let's try one of these pineapple. Sometimes the bottles can get a little worn. This was in the sanitizer, that's why it looks a little funky. So I'm gonna hope for the best on this one. I mean, these bottles don't have a, endless life, but I think once we get a little bit of cold liquid in it, I think it'll start to fill it out a little more. I do like bottling in 2 liters. Kegging, I guess, is the ideal as far as less things to clean. It's easier to clean one thing than, 48, but kegging has its own challenges. You got to get CO2, and the kegs also wear out from time to time. The one I have is starting to get some issues, so I could try and have it fixed, but I think I just like the portability of these bottles, so that's why I'm really starting to lean toward using them for a lot of stuff. Okay, that should be it for this guy. Let's hope we're good on that one. And what's also going to happen, these bottles, these plastic 2-liter bottles, they can be real pliable, real squeezable, even after I fill them with the beer. But once the carbonation happens, they're going to be rock solid. That's one way you can tell when you're using these bottles when they're pretty much ready to go. So what I'll probably do is definitely give it a good 2 weeks to really settle in. But after that, I'll probably take one of these 12-ounce bottles and just give it an open and make sure it's nicely carbonated and everything's good to go. If one of them tastes right and looks right, you're probably okay for the rest. That's the good thing about one mixture of sugar and water for the whole thing instead of one per bottle, because it's a little more uniform across the whole batch. Okay, this is probably like watching paint dry, so I'm going to skip ahead. Maybe I'll show you some of the 12-ounce bottling. So, catch you in a little bit. Okay, time to do one of the 12-ounce bottles. I got this one from Train on the North Shore. It's Laughing Buddha beer. See if you can see, it's got a little Buddha face on it. Well, we're going to do a little recycling and fill the Buddha with some amber. So, similar to the 2 liters, I'm going to open the spigot, but of course we've got less to pour for obvious reasons. And we're going to keep that head space I mentioned probably around 1.5 inches to the top, just so the beer's got a little room and you don't get beer in your face when you open it up. Okay, that's close enough. You know, there's a bottling wand for this that some people use. I've just been used to doing it this method, but like I said in an earlier video, there's a lot of things you can spend money on this. Some of them probably helpful. I just didn't really feel the need. So we got our bottle cap, little cap. Then we're going to push the sides down with our little Italian bottle capper. So simple enough. You just center it on the cap and you bring it down like so. There you go. 1 bottled beer, 12 ounce that is. So from here, it's pretty much just wash, rinse, repeat. So I'll be doing much more bottling. Catch up with you when we're all done, and we'll just have a final look before we're ready to drink the beer. Got another 2 weeks or so for that, but I'll catch up with you when we're done with the bottling. And that is it for bottling. We got our 4 2 liters in the back, and we got in front of those 26 12-ounce bottles. We got a few varieties. I showed you the Lucky Buddha. It's not laughing, it's Lucky Buddha beers. We also got some, they call it Kolsch style. You can see this, it's got like a little attachment here. I can open it, it's not really a big deal right now, it's still fermenting. See, you got that. And the good thing about these, you don't have to worry about separate bottles, bottle caps rather. You just kind of latch that thing on and there it is. So that's our batch. So right now, we're going to just stick these in a nice safe place. I have a little plastic bin that'll fit them all. I'll probably put some plastic bags around everything just in case we have a problem. I've never had a bottle explode. I have had beer be so carbonated that when you open it, the whole thing basically fizzes out. So we just want to be sure about that. So I'm going to just cover it with a little bit of plastic and keep it in this bin just to make sure it's nice and snug. We'll be looking at least, I would say, probably around 2 weeks before it's really carbonated enough to pour. So we'll check back in at that time. What I'll probably do, I'll take one of the smaller bottles here, stick it in the fridge for a couple days, and then open that. And once that one is good, I think we can say it's pretty clear the batch is fine. And we'll keep an eye on these. You know, hopefully these won't fail on me. I think the Coke ones are fine. It's these others that have just seen their day. You can see they're a little worn for wear. What's probably going to happen is these little indentations are going to be pushed out because remember we're getting that carbonation and with that comes pressure. So I have seen that happen on a few occasions. So I'm hoping the best for these two that are a little worse for wear. Anyway, that is the batch up to bottling. Next time we check in, we'll do a little taste test. Okay, we've got about 1.5 weeks into the bottling, and I'm showing you these two because remember these are the bottles that were looking a little kind of crunched up because I put them into the sanitizer and the hot water, and it kind of got the plastic a little bent, but as you can see, none of that going on anymore. They're nice and smooth. And the reason for that is, of course, when the fermentation's going on in the bottle and the carbonation process, in addition to creating the CO2 to give the beer that nice head, it gives you a little bit of pressure, and with the plastic bottles, it presses them out. So you can see now our bottles are nice and smooth, ready to go. So we'll be enjoying this beer coming up soon. Okay, so I got the hydrometer here. I never really talked about this when we were doing the video for boiling and all the other parts, but this is where we would get the alcohol content. And as you can see on the hydrometer, there's several different measurements, but there's one on here for, you see at the bottom there, it says SPGR, and you got the numbers that go at the top. We got the 1.000, and we got some increments there, 1.01, 1.010, 1.020, and so on and so forth, and all the little subdivisions in there. So the way we're going to do this is you take the tube that comes with the the hydrometer, and I like to stick it in a little bottle like this because it gives it a little more stability, easier to keep it upright. And I'm going to put the hydrometer inside right there, like that. And again, I like doing it like this because, you know, it keeps the hydrometer by itself. This tube is very flimsy, as you can see, and it's also very narrow, easy to tip over. But with the bottle, it stays upright a little better. So I'm going to simulate doing it with just water since we already have the beer done. So I'm just going to put a little regular tap water into the filter here. And what's going to happen is, right now this hydrometer is sitting right at the bottom, but eventually I'm going to put enough liquid in there and it's going to float. So what we're going to do is pour a little bit in there. Okay, so we've poured in the water and it's been enough to make the little hydrometer float. As you can see, I'm pressing it and it's floating on the water. So what you want to see is, right now I'm on the gauge with the specific gravity right now. We've got that 1.000. And you can see that little line of the water, the surface right there. See if I can point it out to you. You see how that water just kind of comes up on it right to that point. You're just going to look for that line, either the whole number or the increment that the water is closest to, the liquid is closest to, and that's going to be your measurement. And you're going to do this twice. You're going to do this once after the initial boil, so you get the original gravity, OG, and then you're going to get the final gravity, the FG. You're going to do that right before you bottle. So you take the two, and then there's a formula that you can use to calculate the alcohol content by volume. Okay, we're ready for the final part of the home brewing process, my favorite part. We're going to taste some of the beer that I've made. So I figured it'd be a nice occasion to show the fridge behind me. This is a fridge given to Andrea and me by my parents as a wedding present. Actually, it's served us well, but we're going to be getting rid of it pretty soon. So I figured it'd be a last chance to see it in all its glory before we ship it out to pasture. Anyway, let's take a look now what we have. I got, they call these Kolsch bottles. You can see there's like a little wire fixture in there, and it's actually, the cap is kind of self-contained. So I like these. I don't have a lot, but I'm trying to get more of them because, as you can see, it makes capping a lot easier. Unlike the metal caps where you have to keep a regular supply of them, as long as you keep the seal on this good, you can use these over and over again. You just gotta wash them and sanitize them before each use. Anyway, so let's crack open this one without further ado. We're going to try our amber beer. There you go. Love that sound. So I'm going to pour a little bit into our glass here. Check out, I don't have it chilled so you can get a good feel for how it looks. And we're going to just kind of tip the glass a little bit. Watch some of that head start to form. Looks like our carbonation is pretty good. We got a little bit on the lighter side, but that's all right. You know, I've had beers, and we got a head going there. That's pretty good, pretty decent size. You know, I've had beers where you get them where they're gushing, and that's not really a good thing. But this is it. This is the amber, and thank you so much for watching this. I'm also, if anyone's interested, an author. I've got several books on Amazon. Look under Paul Heingarten on Amazon.com. And I've got plenty of sci-fi stories and lots more to keep your interest there. So thanks again for watching the PaulAbout videos and watching my homebrew experience. Have a good one.